In 2002, a limousine driver named Mike Hughes broke a world record. He launched his own limo 103 feet through the air off a homemade ramp. It wasn't enough. 12 years later, he built a steam powered rocket in his garage and launched himself 1,300 feet into the sky. It crashed. He walked away injured and somehow still not done. In 2016, Mike announced his real goal. He wasn't chasing world records anymore. He wanted to build a rocket capable of reaching space, look down at the Earth with his own eyes, and prove once and for all that it wasn't round. He needed $100,000 to do it. He launched a crowdfunding campaign. Almost nobody cared. He raised $310. Then he said one sentence that changed everything. He said he didn't believe in science, only in what he could see with his own eyes. Within days, donations poured in. A community that had been waiting for someone exactly like him found their man. In 2020, Mike Hughes launched his final rocket. It malfunctioned on the way up. He died on impact, still convinced to his last second that the Earth he was falling back toward wasn't a sphere. Here's what should stop you. Mike Hughes wasn't uneducated. He wasn't isolated from information. He lived in the most connected era in human history, with the entire body of human scientific knowledge sitting in his pocket, and he still spent his final years building rockets to disprove it. So the real question was never really about the shape of the planet. It's about how someone builds an entire worldview so airtight that even death couldn't get through it. The strange part is, ancient people figured this out with almost nothing. Around 500 BC, the Greek philosopher Pythagoras noticed the moon and sun were spheres, and reasoned the Earth probably was too. A few centuries later, Aristotle watched ships disappear over the horizon hull first, mast last, and watched Earth's shadow curve across the moon during lunar eclipses. Around 200 BC, a mathematician named Eratosthenes stuck two sticks in the ground in two different cities, measured the tiny difference in their shadows at noon, and calculated Earth's circumference using nothing but geometry. His number was within a few percent of the real answer, over 2,000 years before satellites existed. For most of recorded history, this wasn't controversial. It was just understood. Then, in 1865, a man named Samuel Rowbotham published a book called Earth, Not a Globe. And the modern flat Earth movement was essentially born from one man's stubborn refusal to trust anything he couldn't personally witness. His entire philosophy came down to one rule: only believe what your own eyes can confirm. If the horizon looks flat standing on a beach, then it is flat. Never mind the curvature math, never mind that a coastline is a tiny fraction of a 14,000-kilometer sphere. He built an entire cosmology out of trusting his eyes over trusting scale. That belief needed a story to survive, so it found religion next. Some believers pointed to Revelation's mention of 4 corners of the earth and decided it must be a literal square, not the same figure of speech we use when we say all corners of the world today. Others read a Quranic verse describing Earth as spread out like a carpet and decided that meant flat rather than vast and habitable. By the 2000s, a specific version had taken hold. A flat disk, the North Pole at the center, Antarctica forming an ice wall around the entire rim, holding the oceans in. Cross that wall, the theory goes, and you fall off the edge of the world. That theory should have died quietly in internet forums. Instead, in 2018, something happened that nobody in the Flat Earth community expected. A group linked to the Flat Earth International Conference decided to settle the rotation question scientifically. They bought a $20,000 laser ring gyroscope, a device precise enough to detect the faintest rotational movement on Earth, expecting it to sit dead still and finally prove their stationary model correct on camera. It didn't sit still. It drifted at exactly the rate you'd expect from a planet rotating once every 24 hours. On a live stream, with a hot mic still running, one of the researchers quietly told another that they weren't going to share those results publicly because they contradicted the entire premise of the model they'd built their community around. They'd built the one experiment capable of disproving their own belief, watched it disprove their belief in real time, and buried the result instead of publishing it. That single moment tells you more about human psychology than 100 years of flat Earth history combined. It wasn't a lack of evidence. They built the evidence themselves, with their own money, watched it happen, and chose the belief over the data anyway. Which is worth sitting with for a second, because it's not really a story about people who are unusually foolish. It's a story about what happens to anyone once a belief becomes tangled up with identity, community, and years of public commitment. Walking it back doesn't just mean admitting a mistake about geometry. It means losing the community built around defending it. The identity built around being one of the few who sees the truth, the sense of belonging that came from believing something together. For a lot of people, that cost feels higher than being wrong. Mike Hughes never got to see the curve of the Earth from up there, but maybe the bigger tragedy wasn't that he misunderstood the planet, it was that the human brain can become so committed to an idea that reality itself stops being enough to change it. If your brain enjoyed peeling back a mystery like this one, that's the whole point of this channel. Like this video, subscribe, and let's keep peeling.